യുകെയിൽ ദയാവധം നിയമവിധേയമാക്കാനുള്ള ബില്ലിനെതിരെ ക്രൈസ്തവർ രംഗത്ത്. ബില്ലിനായുള്ള വോട്ടെടുപ്പ് നടന്ന നവംബർ 29-ന് വെസ്റ്റ്മിൻസ്റ്ററിൽ ക്രൈസ്തവർ ബില്ലിനെ എതിർത്തുകൊണ്ട് റാലി നടത്തി. നവംബർ 11-ന് ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് ലേബർ പാർലമെന്റ് അംഗമായ കിങ് ലീഡ്ബിറ്ററാണ് ദയാവധ അനുകൂല ബിൽ അവതരിപ്പിച്ചത്. തുടർന്ന് നവംബർ 29-ന് പാർലമെന്റിന്റെ അധോസഭയായ ഹൌസ് ഓഫ് കോമൺസിൽ വോട്ടെടുപ്പ് നടന്നു. 5 മണിക്കൂർ നീണ്ട സംവാദത്തിന് ശേഷം നടന്ന വോട്ടെടുപ്പിൽ 330 എംപിമാർ ബില്ലിനെ അനുകൂലിച്ചപ്പോൾ 275 പേർ എതിർത്തു. ഈ പശ്ചാത്തലത്തിലാണ് വോട്ടെടുപ്പ് നടക്കുന്ന നവംബർ 29-ന് തന്നെ ബില്ലിനെ എതിർത്തുകൊണ്ട് ക്രൈസ്തവർ വെസ്റ്റ്മിൻസ്റ്റർ ഒത്തുചേർന്ന് റാലി സംഘടിപ്പിച്ചത്. ജീവന്റെ സംരക്ഷണത്തിന് എതിര് നിൽക്കുന്നതാണ് പ്രസ്തുത ബില്ല് എന്ന ബോധ്യത്തിന്റെ അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിലാണ് പ്രസ്തുത റാലി സംഘടിപ്പിച്ചത്. പൂർണ്ണ ബോധ്യമുള്ള 18 വയസ്സിന് മുകളിൽ പ്രായമുള്ള മാരക രോഗത്തെ തുടർന്ന് 6 മാസം മാത്രം ആയുസ്സുള്ളവർക്കാണ് നിലവിൽ പ്രസ്തുത ബില്ല് ബാധകമാകുക. എന്നാൽ കാലക്രമേണ ഇതിലെ നിബന്ധനകൾ വിപുലമാക്കാനുള്ള സാധ്യത തള്ളിക്കളയാനാവില്ലെന്ന് വിദഗ്ധരും ജീവന്റെ സംരക്ഷകരും ഒരേ സ്വരത്തിൽ പറയുന്നു. ഈ ബില്ല് നിയമമായാൽ നീതിബോധമുള്ള മനുഷ്യ സംസ്കാരത്തെ തന്നെയും മനുഷ്യനിലെ നന്മയെയും ധ്വംസിക്കാൻ പര്യാപ്തമാണെന്നും വിലയിരുത്തലുകൾ ഉണ്ട്. നേരത്തെ തന്നെ ദയാവധത്തോട് ശക്തമായ എതിർപ്പാണ് കത്തോലിക്ക സഭയ്ക്ക് ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നത്. ജീവൻ ഗർഭധാരണ മുതൽ സ്വാഭാവിക മരണം വരെ സംരക്ഷിക്കപ്പെടണം എന്ന കത്തോലിക്ക സഭയുടെ നിലപാടിന് എതിരാണ് ദയാവധം എന്ന ക്രൂരകൃത്യം. ദയാവധത്തെ അനുകൂലിക്കുന്ന ബില്ലിനെതിരെ വെസ്റ്റ്മിൻസ്റ്ററിൽ നടന്ന റാലിയിൽ നൂറുകണക്കിന് ആളുകളാണ് പങ്കെടുത്തത്. അവർ തങ്ങളുടെ ആശങ്കകൾ ഷെക്കിന ന്യൂസിനോട് പങ്കുവച്ചു.
Well, I'm here because I believe that people should not be encouraged to commit suicide, and this is basically what this is. I do not believe the lie that it is just to stop people from suffering. I believe that we've found in other countries like Canada that there is definitely a mission creep, that once they bring assisted suicide, because that's what it is, then all of a sudden, or later on down the road, you have people with depression and things that are not actually life-threatening, that are actually lethally injected and done away with, and that surely is wrong. That's murder, and we should not expect our doctors to put people to sleep, because that's basically what they're doing.
I support life. You know, life starts from conception. That doesn't mean just protect babies. That means protect lives all the way up to the vulnerable ages. But regardless of your disability, regardless of your health, it matters. You've got to think about your own. I think of my own mum. I wouldn't want her to have this choice of easy death. I want the NHS to better themselves. I want funding to go into the NHS, appointments made available so that health conditions are not discovered later down the line.
The problem is that with all of these arguments, whether it's for abortion or for assisted suicide or for euthanasia, you know, we're saying that life is contingent on something else, that life is only important if I value it or if you value it. And that is not the teaching of Christianity, which must underpin something like this, because it's so fundamental to say that every life is valuable, no matter whether we recognise it or not, whether, you know, I recognise it or you recognise it. Life, every single life is important and has an intrinsic value. And once we start saying it's contingent on something else, well, that leaves us in a very shaky position. And it's actually a really bad message to be giving young people as well. You know, we see a lot of young people struggling with mental health and those kind of, you know, problems, self-esteem, and to be saying, well, your life is only important because you value it, because that is ultimately what this law is about. It's saying that, you know, people who've got maybe terminal conditions, if you don't value your life, we'll agree with you and say it isn't valuable. That's a terrible thing to be saying to anybody, particularly the most vulnerable.
Yes, you know, the reality is that simple law, good law, says do not kill. This bill today will permit for the taking of life in our society, and that can never be good law.
If I have a doctor that doesn't know me, doesn't know my situation, doesn't know my life, they make a judgment about the quality of my life. And I have had an experience where in the last year where I was ill with sepsis and I was unconscious, and doctors put a do not resuscitate order on me without my consent, without my family's consent, because they deemed that it would be better off. I have no quality of life in their judgment. So I think putting a doctor in that role, their doctor's job is to assist us to live. to make our lives well. And now if you actually give them the power, which they don't want, most doctors don't want to be in that position.
A bill like this has not been enforced. Similarly, there's a disability lobby that says, does this bill understand how vulnerable we are, that perhaps at points we have wanted to kill ourselves? We need to be protected from this kind of legislation that means that we will go down a road to suicide. And so good law will always provide an ultimate safeguard which says doctors are there to cure, not to kill. We as a society need to come around those that are hurting, that are vulnerable, and help them to live, not to die. We need to put care around them, community around them, and alleviate their physical and mental suffering as far as is possible.
Well, my sister Mamie, she went into hospital. She was 79 years old, and she was okay. She had no pain or nothing. And I said, I'll see you later on. When I went, they'd taken the drip off. They doped her up. And I said, what's happened to my sister? She was okay. She came in here. And she was all right. She just had pain. And anyway, to cut a long story short, I went up there every day and I had to tell them to put the drip up. Eventually, my sister... another doctor came in, seen that she needed a blood transfusion. She got the blood transfusion. She came alive and she came out and lived another 4 years. So they would have killed her.
I think actually the right way to offer people dignity would be to invest in the right support to look after people and provide them quality care. And it feels like a really hasty decision to handle a complex issue, and it shouldn't be rushed. I understand that it is complex. There are a lot of people suffering, but this doesn't seem like the right solution. This seems a very dangerous route to take.
Life is incurable. We will all die. And this is something that we all have to address as doctors. And it is never easy. And I have to say that as a doctor, as a consultant for over 30 years, dealing with the dying in the circumstances in which they're placed is not something that is ever easy. And unlike procedures and operations that we can get used to, this is something which affects us all.
I believe that it's up to God when we die, not up to humans. I believe that it's just wrong to put people to sleep.
I'm here today because I don't want to see a slippery slope, which I think is a huge danger should this bill be allowed to go through. I think we should be focusing on palliative care, pain relief, staff to support people who are terminally ill. And I fear that should this pass, it's such a complex issue that there will be people slipping through the net, so to speak, who maybe don't have that choice. Maybe you're not sentient enough to choose. And there will be other people that will give pressure, or just by not doing anything at all may assist a death that perhaps can be avoided.
As doctors, we have to deal with each and every patient in the circumstances in which they are placed. Not circumstances that we would hope for or prefer. No, the actual concrete circumstances in which those patients and their families are placed when they are facing their death.
Yeah. Wherever legislation like this has come into force, we have seen an incremental growth in the number of those that actually commit suicide. And although those that are saying that proposing this bill right now say that there are very secure safeguards, the reality is this, that wherever legislation like this has happened in other jurisdictions, in Oregon, in Canada, in Belgium, in the Netherlands, wherever that has happened, immediately it gets challenged in law, so that people then say, it's my human right as someone who's suffering from an ongoing chronic disease that is not terminally ill, it's my right to determine when I die, and then to incrementally push that out. So in various jurisdictions, we're seeing people accessing assisted suicide for eating disorders, for depression. We say this is tragic. And we do not want that culture of death to enter into the law here in the United Kingdom. Okay.
So, for example, you have to have a view that the person is within 6 months of dying. Well, what on earth does that mean? Of an incurable condition. What does that mean? Well, what that means in the bill as presented is a condition which is not reversible. So if you take dementia, if you take frailty, if you take insulin-dependent diabetes, if you give, for example, insulin, or if you treat these other conditions, you do not reverse the underlying condition. So that would expand the definition of what is a terminal illness. The next thing, if you take the simple example of diabetes, insulin it treats it, but it doesn't cure it. It doesn't reverse it. Then if you go to the bill, then that is an incurable condition. Now, if you stop your insulin, not a question of taking an overdose, but you stop your insulin, then you will die, and you will die within less than 6 months.
അതേസമയം യുകെയിൽ ദയാവധം നിയമവിധേയമാക്കാനുള്ള ബില്ലിൽ ഭൂരിപക്ഷം എംപിമാരും വോട്ട് ചെയ്തതിൽ ദുഃഖം പ്രകടിപ്പിച്ച് ഇംഗ്ലണ്ടിലെയും വെയിൽസിലെയും കത്തോലിക്ക ബിഷപ്പുമാരും രംഗത്തെത്തി. ബില്ല് നിയമമാകാൻ ഇനിയും ഏറെ നാൾ കഴിയും. മാസങ്ങൾ നീണ്ട പാർലമെന്ററി പരിശോധനയ്ക്കും ഭേദഗതികൾക്കും അംഗീകാരത്തിനും ശേഷമേ നിയമം നിലവിൽ വരൂ. നിയമനിർമ്മാണ പ്രക്രിയയുടെ പിന്നീടുള്ള ഘട്ടത്തിൽ ബില്ല് നിരസിക്കപ്പെടുമെന്ന് പ്രതീക്ഷിക്കുന്നതായി കത്തോലിക്ക മെത്രാൻമാർ പ്രതീക്ഷ പ്രകടിപ്പിച്ചിരിക്കുകയാണ്. ഇന്റർനാഷണൽ ഡെസ്ക്, Shekinah News.